Okay, let's keep reading Cosentino. We are up to the impossible trick. That's right. Cos leapt out of the way just in time. Clang! The sword slammed down onto the checkered floor just behind him. Cos scrambled to his feet, ready to dodge another strike. Wait! The king's other head said. The giant rabbit froze, its muscles bulging. What are you doing? The first head demanded. Real magic is dull, the second head said. There's no mystery. I know exactly how the spells work. But I enjoyed the trick with the apple. I have no idea how it was done. Everyone stared at the king, astonished. I would like to see more illusions, the second head continued. Flex, put that sword away. The big rabbit lumbered back up towards the throne. Hope twinkled in Cos's chest. I would be honoured to show you more tricks, your majesty, he said. Outrageous, grumbled the king's first head. Make that clock disappear, the second head told Cos. He stood and pointed to an old grandfather clock near the wall. It looked heavy. Cos blinked. He didn't usually let the audience tell him what to do, but the audience didn't usually threaten to cut off his head either. Certainly, your majesty, he said. I'll need a dressing room and a day or two to prepare. You have 10 minutes. The flicker of hope died. That's ridiculous. Make it 5 minutes. Hollow pushed Cos out of the king's chamber and along the stone corridor towards a dressing room. You'd better make that clock disappear, he said, or else. Don't worry, Cos said, although he had no clue how he would perform this trick. I won't disappoint the king. He has given you an impossible task, Hollow said. Only I can save you. What do you mean? Cos asked as they approached a thick wooden door with an iron bolt. Tell me where the missing spade is, Hollow said. Then I'll let you go and tell the king you escaped. So this was why Hollow had brought him here, to force Cos to tell him where the ace was. As far as Cos knew, Ace was still hiding in the attic of the Copper Pot Theatre. I assumed you caught him, Cos said. I haven't seen him since you chased him out of my theatre. Hollow opened the wooden door, revealing a cramped room with a dusty rug. This is your last chance, Hollow said. Cos shrugged. Sorry, Mellow Yellow, he said. I can't help you. Fine, Cos snarled. You now have 4 minutes. He pushed Cos into the dressing room and slammed the door shut. It took a second for Cos's eyes to adjust to the candlelight. There were no windows. He lifted up the carpet looking for a trapdoor. There wasn't one. The floor and walls were solid silver. A full-length mirror hung from the back of the door. Cos checked behind it, but found nothing useful. The door was made of thick oak. Cos was trapped. He took off his fedora. Snuggles, he whispered, I need a way out of here. Snuggles popped her head out of the hat. You're the escape artist, she said, not me. The door is bolted from the outside. The floor, walls and ceiling are solid metal. It's impossible. Well, then I guess you'd better make that clock disappear. But that's even more impossible, Cos said. It looked like it weighed a ton. I can't move it, especially not in front of dozens of witnesses. You're a magician. Impossible is your whole thing, Cos groaned. You're not helping, Snuggles. I have less than 3 minutes to figure this out. Listen to me, Snuggles said urgently. You don't need to move the clock. You just need to make it look like it's gone. That's what an illusion is. But how can I... Cos hesitated. The wheels started turning in his mind. You're welcome, Snuggles said, and disappeared back into the hat. The Thief of Time. When Hollow opened the door, Cos was standing in the middle of the dressing room. The rug was folded under his arm. Time's up, Hollow said. Are you going to tell me where the spade is? And miss my chance to amaze the king, Cos said. Absolutely not. He carried the rug down the corridor, back to the king's chamber. The lords and ladies fell silent as he entered. One of the women looked familiar, although Cos couldn't work out where he had seen her before. Finally, one of the king's heads said, We were getting bored. The other added, The king watched as Cos walked over to the clock. He held up the rug like a curtain, concealing the clock from view. Your Majesty, I have for you an illusion called the Thief of Time. This illusion has never been performed before anywhere in Magic Land. It is quite dangerous, so I suggest everyone stand up there, Cos said, pointing with one hand to the platform near the king's throne. The lords and ladies hurried over, while Cos tried not to look relieved. This trick would only work if everyone watched from the same angle. Hurry up, the king said. Very well, Cos said. 3, 2, 1. He dropped the rug. The grandfather clock was gone. The lords and ladies gasped. All 4 of the king's eyes widened. Even Hollow looked shocked. There is no spell dust in the air, Cos pointed out. No real magic has been used. No laws have been broken. The young woman, the one Cos thought he recognised, began to clap. After a moment, the rest of the audience joined her. Cos bowed, but the trick was not yet over. Magic's secret unlocked. The clock was hidden behind the mirror Cos had brought from the dressing room. He had tilted it at an angle so the audience couldn't see their own reflections. If any of them got too close, the trick would be ruined. But how? The king began. It's one thing to make a grandfather clock vanish, Your Majesty, Cos said, but wouldn't it be more impressive to make the clock appear out of thin air? He held up the rug, knocked over the mirror and dropped the rug on top of it, and all in the space of a second the lords and ladies boggled as the clock reappeared before their eyes. Ta-da! Cos sighed with relief. He had done the impossible. When he got back to the Coppertown Theatre, he might start work on an improved version of this trick. Amazing! Not as impressive as real spells, but you made real spells illegal. Not in Silver City. Your Majesty, Hollow interrupted, I have just received word that Cosentino is hiding your missing soldier, the Ace of Spades. Both of the king's heads spun to look at Cos. What? If he doesn't reveal the soldier's whereabouts, Hollow added, I would humbly suggest that you kill him. The giant rabbit, who had been sleeping on the floor, looked up eagerly. Where is the Ace of Spades? The king bellowed at Cos. I don't know what he's talking about, Your Majesty, Cos said. I'm a simple illusionist from Coppertown. But the king trusted Hollow. Off with his head! The giant rabbit stood up and grabbed his sword once again. Your Majesty, cried a voice. The king rolled his eyes. What can I do for you, Princess Priscilla? Cos looked over. It was the woman who had looked familiar. And suddenly he knew why. She'd been in the audience at the Copperpot Theatre, wearing the hooded cloak. He recognised her blue eyes. Now she was dressed in a purple dress. Princess Priscilla was the king's niece. Princess Priscilla, Princess of Magic Land, Silver Castle, Silver City. Abilities, levitation, sweet, kind heart, and extremely clever. What had she been doing at Cos's show in Coppertown? If you keep the illusionist alive, Priscilla said, he may change his mind and decide to talk. Silence, the king said. I've made my decision. Priscilla kept talking. Apparently the king couldn't control her. She, like Ace, must not have any evil in her heart. Are you sure? She pressed. Perhaps you want to consult your other head. Actually, the king's other head said, she makes a good point. No, she doesn't, the first head grumbled. Yes, she does, Flex, the giant rabbit huffed. Take the illusionist to the arcade, the king continued. The puzzler can deal with him. Cos gasped. He didn't want to lose his head by a giant rabbit, but the arcade might be even worse. The lords and ladies looked horrified. Flex grabbed Cos's collar and dragged him out of the chamber. Cos caught Princess Priscilla's eye. He still didn't know why she was trying to save him. Princess Priscilla mouthed something at him. Good luck. The arcade. Flex pulled Cos down several flights of stairs into darker and darker regions of the castle. Eventually, he hauled Cos through an iron door into a cold dungeon. A stone well with a silver lid stood in the centre of the room. Flex unlocked the heavy lid and grunted as he lifted it, revealing a circle of pure blackness. Cos realised what the giant rabbit was about to do. He struggled to get free, but it was useless. Flex was too strong. Instead, Cos shook his head until his hat fell off. The hat hit the floor and rolled into the corner. Snuggles, Cos hissed, "Get help!" "No!" Then Flex dropped Cos into the well. Cos plummeted into the darkness faster and faster. He shielded his face with his arms as the walls of the well rushed past, scraping his elbows and his bare feet. There was a clank from high above as Flex closed the heavy silver lid, cutting out all the light. Cos had never fallen so far without a safety rope. Unless there was a pile of mattresses at the bottom of the well, he was going to die. Cos slammed onto the stone floor, jarring his knees and shoulders. But he wasn't dead. He didn't even think he'd broken any bones. How was that possible? Wham! Ow! Cos clambered to his feet as his eyes adjusted to the gloom. He had landed in a cavern as big as a football field. Someone had filled it with junk, all a rusty popcorn machine, a shooting gallery littered with faded toys, an air hockey table with 2 broken legs. Cobwebs covered a small roller coaster. The ground under Cos's feet was a paper mache of damp cardboard and rotting food. The air was so cold that his breath made clouds around his head. He turned around slowly. A row of arcade game machines leant against the wall behind him, their lights occasionally flashing. A metal claw dangled inside a glass box filled with lollies. As Cos watched, a spider crawled out of the coin slot and scuttled away into the darkness. "Hello," Cos called. Oh, sorry, I missed a page. Nice. Have I? No. This was the arcade. "Hello? Hello?" Cos called again. His voice echoed around the cabin. There was no response. A cockroach as big as a phone crawled over Cos's bare foot. He yelped and stumbled back. Then he heard footsteps, fast and light. Someone was running towards him. Cos backed away, closer to the game machines. Whoever else was down here, he hoped they were friendly. A boy appeared from behind the shooting gallery. He had curly brown hair and wore a puffy red vest over a denim jacket. A fluorescent cap was pulled low over his dark eyes. One of his hands was gloved. "Who's there?" The boy didn't look threatening, so Cos stepped into view. "I'm Cos," he said. The kid ran up to him and extended his ungloved hand. "Hey, Cos, what's cooking?" Cos wasn't sure how to answer that. "I'm 80s, the kid continued. "Welcome to the arcade." Cos shook his hand. "Great to meet you, 80s. Come on, I'll show you around." Cos followed 80s through the cavern, skirting around piles of broken carnival equipment. Oops. He saw other prisoners shuffling around in the gloom, people who had angered the king. Their clothes had holes in them and didn't fit properly, as though they had been found at the bottom of the junk heap. One person was curled in a ball on the dirt. An old woman was digging frantically through the rubbish like she'd lost something important. 2 men were collecting junk and stuffing it into a bag, but the bag had a hole in it and objects kept falling out. "Most people sleep over there in the jumping castle," 80 said, pointing. You can get chocolate from the skill tester machine, or make yourself a Dagwood dog in that van over there. We have all 3 food groups: sugar, fat, and salt." Cos didn't think those were the 3 food groups, but he didn't say so. A small car zoomed out of the darkness, shooting sparks. 80s pulled Cos out of the way just in time. The car sped away. "You have to be on the lookout for the dodgem cars down here," 80s explained, "and wild dogs. And don't eat the fairy floss, it's made of spider webs." Blech. Cos shuddered. "And don't go in the mirror maze without nose plugs," 80s finished. "We use it as a toilet." "How long have you been down here?" Cos asked. "Not sure," 80s said. "The king cast a spell, so times moves slower in the arcade. Or to think it the other way, it's like the rest of the world ages in dog years." "I don't understand," Cos said. "An hour on the surface takes less than 10 minutes down here. Flex threw you down the hole, 2 minutes ago? About that. So upstairs 15 minutes has already gone by. Flex will be back in the king's chamber by now." That's why the fall didn't kill me, Cos realised, because time slowed down before I landed. Now you're getting it, 80s said. Flex throws people down the hole every day, mostly Coppertowners who've been caught using magic, but they only land about once a week. Cos's heart sank as he realised what this meant. Time was rushing past on the surface. If he didn't find a way out of here soon, years would pass, his theatre would rot, his friends would grow old without him. Why are you down here? 80s asked. What did you do? Well, when Hollow arrested me, I was using a paperclip to escape from a shark tank, Cos said, exaggerating slightly. I'm an escape artist. 80's eyes widened. Like MacGyver? Like who? So you can pick locks then? Cos shrugged. Most kinds, sure. 80's looked each way and then leant closer to Cos. Follow me, he whispered. He led Cos deeper into the maze of garbage, away from the spluttering lights of the arcade machines. There were no people around. There's only one way out of the arcade. One way out? Is it the well? Cos guessed. No. Even if you could somehow climb it, the lid is always locked. But there are 3 doors at the other end of the cavern. One of them leads outside. Cos rubbed his hands together. So what's the problem? The puzzler. She guards the doors. She's very loyal to the king, and thanks to her magic, she's super strong and she can't be hurt. At least 5 people have tried to sneak past her to get to the doors. She caught them and forced them to play a stop. Cos stopped. The path ahead was covered by a damp blanket. Cos wondered if this was where 80s slept. I figure, 80s continued, we can lure the puzzler away from the doors and trap her. How? 80s lifted the corner of the blanket. Cos had assumed there was solid ground underneath, but there was actually a deep pit. Tricky. Puzzler will fall into the pit. It's like the shark tank illusion, Cos said, quickly filling in 80s on the trick, except I didn't fall into the tank because there was something beneath my feet, even though it looked like there wasn't. I've been digging for weeks, 80s said. She might be able to climb out, but it'll take her a while, long enough for us to work out which door is the right one, pick the lock and get everyone out of the arcade. 80s put the blanket back into position. Once again, it looked like there was solid ground beneath it. Do you think you can lure her over the pit? Cos asked. 80s nodded. She likes games, and she's always looking for new players. Whenever a new prisoner falls down the hole, she goes looking for them. New prisoners are the only ones dumb enough to play. Cos was about to ask more questions when a voice echoed through the arcade. Ladies and gentlemen, we have a new contestant.